guess just to recap a little bit from what we did last week, for all of our sakes, including mine. And you'll remember that last week we sort of established at first, well, what is it that we all want? What are we trying to achieve? And we sort of put our heads together and come up with a couple of simple things that, we want truth and we want justice and fairness in our society, and truth in the law. I think we all sort of agreed on that. Like we're not here to be rebellious, and we don't want anarchy, and we're not here to just agitate for no reason. So in doing that, when we collectively agreed on that, we sort of, in a way, what we did then is we just formed our own little constitution. Because as a collective, as a people, that's what we agreed that was our conscience. Our conscience. And the makeup of what we're about. So that led us into, we have a constitution as a people, and we wanted to understand, well, what is a constitution? So that's it right there. The constitution is that innate makeup of the people, their culture, their values, their morals, and no one else can write that for them. Only they can write it because it's them. So what we've got in our society, we're in our legal system, it's a bit of a mess. We'd all agree it's a mess. It doesn't feel right, and it certainly doesn't look right, and it doesn't smell right. I guess we all want to know how we can fix that. And the more I read, the more confused I get, and quite often I get disheartened, and you can think, well, there's no way out. How do we fix it? When the simple answer is, well, the truth is on our side, and the truth should prevail. And at the end of the day, it's got me stuffed how we fix it, really. I think the only way it's going to get fixed is by God's hand, really, to be honest. But as a people, it's our duty to rectify it, because it's our responsibility, it's our lack of responsibility as people that's allowed it to get into this mess. It's because of ignorance and laziness, or let down from generation to generation, where people have walked away from their responsibility to maintain what should have been the truth in the law. Okay, so what we should have, this is what we should have in a system, which is the rule of law. Tell me if you can't read this week. It's a rule of law, okay? And that is where we've got the people, right? That's the collective people. And they are equal to the head of the state. Can everyone read that? So the head of the state is not... So the rule of law is no one is above the law. And the law is there for everyone. And the rule of law is there to ensure that equity prevails. And equity is justice and fairness for all. So, the head of state and the people, the head of state's been appointed by the people and is not above the people, and the head of state's role and function is to hold the assets, I think that's 1, 2, I watched the video from last week and I realised I did some spelling mistakes. Of the people. In trust, right? That's really their only job. In perpetuity. The nation that we build and the wealth that we build as a people, the head of the state's just there to hold all that collective wealth and asset in trust, right? As the people population change from generation to generation. Now, underneath that, you've got the legislative council, or the, government. You've got judiciary system. And you got the executive, which is just all the government administration, right? So they're underneath us as a people. That's how it's meant to be. So, you know, that's the flow of how things should be run, right? What we've got, you know, and it's pretty easy to see because we don't feel that, do we? We're far from it. That's been totally inverted, where it's top-down rule. So all these people, top-down are ruling and the people at the bottom. And you've got to ask, well, how did we get there? How did that happen? Like, who made that up? Well, we let it happen. We let it happen, but, I mean, like, not all our fault, but at the end of the day, the people have let it happen because of a few simple things. The simple things being fraud, deceit, deception, straight out porcupines, blatant ones, but we've gobbled them up, and to top it off, outright treason. That's what's happened. So, to rectify it means to uncover and point out and acknowledge that all these things have happened, most importantly treason and sedition. And it's when you stand in the true law and recognise that we've been placed in a system that's not true law and they've run away with the show. And we're under suffrage of unlawful rule. So, well then, they call it law. You know, we're being dictated to by all these laws. And you go, well, let's have a look at it. What really is law? So, there's a hierarchy of law. So at the top, there's natural law, and part of natural law is spiritual law. Right? That's indissoluble. It doesn't change. It can't be broken down. You can't ignore it. You can't alter it, tamper with it, interfere with it in any way, shape or form. We didn't write it. No one wrote it. It just exists. That's right. God created it, essentially, and that's what we call it, God's law. Natural law and the spiritual law, because all these laws are just, if you break them, there's consequences You don't need to see a judge. The consequences are there. So that's inalienable. And within this realm lies law. Right? So all these native cultures around the world are pretty smart because they tapped into and lived by that. That was their governing law system, because it doesn't change. Underneath that we've got common law. Right, and in common law is probably best described as natural law and spiritual law interpreted by man and then written down. Right? And that's where we get equity. Equity exists in common law, right? And common law is proper law because it's an interpretation of true law. It's been written down for us to understand and live by. And probably the best example of that is the Ten Commandments. So, now in that's where the rule of law also exists, in that area there, common law, and the people. Now underneath that, we've got legislation. Now, legislation is not law. Legislation is legal. That's where legalese lives, down here. And that's where all the snaky stuff happens, because it's all, you know, it can be argued with, contended with, misconstrued. You know, that's where they love it, all these snaky devils. And it changes. We can change legislation. We can find that it doesn't work or it's inappropriate, or we can adjust it. We can tweak it to suit what we want for today. And, you know, it was no good. Yesterday's news. You know, and as things change, you know, we've got new technology and what have you, we need to introduce new legislation. Can't fly your drone somewhere, whatever, or take pictures of someone. So that's down there, but that's not law. Underneath that, you know, it gets further down from that, you know. After that you got, so that's statute law, right? And then you got codes, you know, and then rules. Go to someone's house, they got rules. Take their shoes off at the front door. You know, not allowed to sit on the lounge. Watch the buffet. Yeah, so like that's the hierarchy of laws and rules, etc. So up here in common law, this is where I think I mentioned it. This is where the people exist or should exist. That's people. That's man and woman. Right? God created man and woman in His image, and He gave them dominion over the earth. Right? And so that's where all our spiritual law and natural law wraps up here, where we should be living, and that's our true governance. Yeah. You know that in yourself because you can see it in children. You know, children are pretty innocent, but they best express the values of equity and fairness and stuff. When they know something's not right, they'll let you know. You know, they'll show it and express it. Because it's innocent. Everyone's got this innate sense of right and wrong at the end of the day, because that's how we're created. And you know, less and less society are teaching us to ignore that, and because the law says it's all right. And I tell you it's the law, but it's actually just, you know, something else we've made up these days and called it law. It's legalese. Down here in this realm, this is all fiction. This is made up stuff. And so people don't live down here, or shouldn't be living down here. This is a realm of persons. Personhood. No more than 10 persons in the elevator lift. No person shall enter the building after 10 o'clock or intoxicated. Everything's persons.
Person interest, police.
What's that?
Person interest for the police department. They'll refer you as person of interest.
That's their main objective. That's their main objective. So we're going to get to all that. So that's how they've done it. Where they've got this top-down rule now, top-down system, where they've tricked us all out of that system that I've put up there before, where the people, the head of state at the top, the government can't rule the people or be greater than the people or rule over them, because the government is a fiction. You can't have something, well, it's artificial, it's man-made. You can't have something that man has created to then rule over the men and women. That's against natural law. So that's what we've got to recognise is what's happening and change it. So I went through last week, you know, how did they deceive us and trick us and commit treason and everything. Just briefly, like I did it really quickly and easily, but I've been doing it over a long period of time. So we had all these laws and we had a system, it was all written up, perfect, you know, where the people were in charge. And it still exists, but it's been pushed aside. Been pushed aside because there's a duplicate of everything. There's two of everything. So we've got, you know, we've got our Australian Constitution, or it's actually the Commonwealth of Australia Constitution, right? That's there, but it's on the shelf collecting dust. And in 1973, they came up with the corporation, as everyone probably knows this anyway, but Australia, right? So it's a duplication. There's two of everything. There's two of you, we'll get to that. There's you as a man or woman, and then there's a duplicate fiction of you. So this is the duplicate fiction that they've created. If anyone doesn't know, in 1973, they changed from the Commonwealth of Australia to the Corporation of Australia, and they rewrote the Constitution, and it's completely different. They rewrote it.
Who did this? Who rewrote the Constitution?
So Gough Whitlam in 1973. Yeah. Yeah, so they've made a counterfeit. So that's what they've been doing. Everything that they've done is counterfeited what is true. They've counterfeited, make a duplicate. And why? Why have they sought to do that all this time, methodically? Because they want to pull us out of the jurisdiction of...
It could have been changed back after the change of government, but it wasn't. So it can't just blame Gough Whitlam because the successive governments didn't do anything either.
That's correct. That's correct. So, So what the lady was saying is they could have changed it back, but they haven't, and that's why they're all guilty now.
Yeah.
Because it's not that they haven't known about it, and not knowing about it is not a defence in law anyway. It's one of the big laws of the law. It's a maxim of law is that ignorance is no defence. And that's why we're all suffering, because ignorance for us is no defence. Right? So it's our duty to get a handle on all this and understand it and know where it's gone wrong. We're not personally responsible for it, but as a people, we're responsible to rectify this. And we're also responsible not to continue the treason. So I explained that that's one simple thing I did to explain that I've done it over the years is, you know, all their tricks. Now, they're the perfect narcissists, so they've got a whole swag of types of lies that they use. And here's one of them, like, so last week I sort of explained, you know, the sky is blue. Right, so we all know, and it's established that the sky is blue. So what the government does with our legislation, when they get all our documents, our perfect documents that we've had, that say that we're people and that we're supreme and sovereign, right? And how they wheedled in and undermined that along the way and shifted it away to where suddenly we're in the gutter, right? So simple. I just introduce a word. Right, so now they say the sky appears to be blue. So no one really objects to that or disagrees with it. Yeah, it appears to be blue, you know. But by adding in a simple word, now there's a question mark.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? And then as they go along, they'll go, scientists have found, right, that the sky is a series of, you know, fractures that many interpret as blue, right? So now, not only is there a question mark, they've given the possibility of an alternative, right? So, and then while you're looking at that, trying to get your head around that, they'll just completely erase that one from the books, you know, so you have to search pretty far and wide and look in, you know, some tiny little corner that they've missed, and you'll find some document where the true fact is hiding. So, and that's what they've done with our law. They've sneaked things in. People haven't taken notice and sort of appreciated the value of every word and what it means and what it does. That's one of the things they've done. So. And they still do that now to us all the time. The other things that they've done is just straight out lies, and they make things up. So some of the things they make up, so in our constitution, so now I'll refer to the Corporation of Australia Constitution.
So this is happening in other countries too?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's not just Australia.
Yeah, it's like what the Indians say, the white man speaks with forked tongue. You know, they've done it just systematically everywhere, like, because the people behind this that are mastering this, they want the dilution of the power of people. They can't have free people running around. Where are they going to get their money from? Because all what this is about is because people are free. We are free and sovereign. But what they've done, by stripping people out of that and cornering them into the legislation world, the contract world, which is maritime law, admiralty law, create a person out of you, which is your duplicate that I mentioned before. There's two of you. There's your living man and woman self, and then there's your fiction corporate self that they've created. That entity that they created, they've got power of attorney over and legal title over. And hence, you've been turned over from being a free and sovereign man or woman into being an enslaved corporate person, trapped in all that legalese legislation where they talk about persons. So they've got power over persons. And whatever we act in that realm, enact that role, they have got power over us. And that's what's happening. People don't realise it. People walk around saying, no, I'm free and I'm sovereign. And I'm this and that because I read something somewhere and our constitution says, yeah, all men and women are free and sovereign, so that's us. But that's just pretty words in the book, and it doesn't even pertain to them because they're not. They are persons. We all are. We've all become persons, which is why we've got this top-down rule, because it applies. It applies to them. We've been sold out and into slavery under their fraudulent rule that they've got well established. They trick us outrightly with words that we don't understand. People haven't bothered to understand and learn the meaning of words and the functions of things. So, in our constitution it says it's an act of parliament. Right? So there's a lot of people are looking for answers in the constitution with all this stuff that's going on, but they don't realise, even in that, they've defrauded us. So they're saying our constitution is an act of parliament. Right, so what's a constitution again? Who can make a constitution?
People.
People. And they tell us that all this stuff that they've written up, like a mandate, is a law. So what did we establish earlier? What's law? And what realm does it live in? What jurisdiction? Law only lives up here in natural law, spiritual law, and it's common law. Because it's only common law that can interpret natural law into codes for man. Like man, we've interpreted what's out there into a code for us. And that's where men and women should be sitting. But they do sit, not should be. We just need to get ourselves back into this position and out of personhood. Stop acting the role of being a person. So, what else do they say now in our constitution? Our constitution says, well, the Queen of Australia is our head of state. Who's that? Yeah. So that's just a straight out made up porcupine rubbish. And everyone's going, oh yeah, Queen of Australia. So that's because everyone just assumes that they mean Queen Elizabeth, Her Majesty. And then around about the time they invented all this stuff is when they started taking the photos of the Queen down off the school. You know, she was in every classroom. I still remember that. Um, yeah, so they just make stuff up and everyone's gobbling it up. So it's like, so really it's our fault because everyone should have gone question things at the time. Anyway, it's all there in black and white for us to read that we can just go, well, that's all rubbish. You know, turf it out. So we've got our true constitution, 1901 constitution, Commonwealth of Australia constitution, and I haven't had enough time to go right through it. What is it? So what's the opening statement with that? What lies can we pick out of that? Because that's the next question that, you know, I'd like to look into and see, well, who wrote that for us? Because I know Queen Victoria signed off on it, but was it her mates that wrote it for us? And they wrote nice stuff in there that says we're free and liberty and all the things, you know, that we all like and gobble up, because that sounds good, but what is the other rubbish that's in there, along with it, that usurps it all? Because that's what they've been doing. They've been usurping our power all along by all these tricks. Some blatant, like that, and then others just like gradually changing things away. How did they get us? How did they get us all to be persons? What happened there? Eh? Yeah, so with the birth certificate fraud, that's how we relate to it as the birth certificate fraud. And for those of you who don't know what that is, straight out, that's the day you were born.
That's a base state.
Oh, birth certificate. Birth certificate. Yeah,
Oh.
birth certificate fraud. Which came as a bit of a shock to me, but it all makes sense now. But the day you were born is the day you got tricked into slavery and you were bonded. What happened was you got your registration, right? Registration of birth. And the nurse comes in and, oh, beautiful baby, what's its name? Do you want to sign your registration and blah, blah, blah. You know, so when it grows up, we want it to go to school and it's got to get its immunisations and it's got, you know, it wants to get its driver's licence one day and wants to do all these things, but, you know, and then so you need to register its birth. That was a outright load of bullshit. You don't need that to get anywhere in life. But what you need it for is to be trapped into their system. Because what they created there is a trust. That's a trust, that became a trust document. And they sent that registration off and they registered it on the stock market, bonds, and it gets sent to the Vatican, because they want all of these. And this is where the banks get involved. Straight away, they determine that over your life, you're worth however many millions. You know, so it might be, just for instance taken, I think it's around about, you know, so they'll say that's $3 million, right? So as soon as they whack that off into the banks, they say, can we borrow against that? Right? Because the government's broke. It's been broke forever. All of them are. And that's why they require this, because that's cashola for them. And it's a guarantee now. It's a guarantee that they've got ownership, legal title over you. So they created a trust. Right? This is actually your trust. You're actually up here as a grantor in this trust. But you don't know it. Right? And then there's a beneficiary. in a trust, and there's a trustee. Right, for those of you who don't know what a trust is made up of. Now, in a banking trust, it's the same, but the trustee is a creditor, the beneficiary is a creditor, right, and that's in the realm of the living. The trustee is a debtor, right, and that's a debt. That's a banking trust. Anyway, the whole legal title over this, trust, which is your trust.
So what's the first grant?
Grantor. That can be grantor or the settler, or exchanger. They're the people that
It's all right.
established the trust. But they actually establish it on your behalf because you're an infant, and they manage the trust for you until you are of age. Right? So as of the age of 18, you're supposed to come back and claim your estate.
No one tells us that.
Yeah, no one told you that. No one told poor old mum that what that really was, because on the birth registration form it says informant. The mum's the informant. And an informant is somebody who hands something over to the state. That's the definition of an informant. It also means there's an investigation going on, which they never told mum there's an investigation going on either. So by fraud and deceit, that's what they've created, and they race off with this to the bank, and they say, well, this person's worth $3 million over their lifetime, give it to us now. So that goes into the public debt, right? And what they're going to do for the rest of your life is they're going to hold you responsible for the public debt. So you got to pay tax, fines, regos, blah, 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 you name it. But into you for everything. And mind you, it's your blood, sweat and tears to start with that they borrowed the money for, spend it on goodness knows what, and then blaming you for it, holding you accountable for it. Mind you, they insure that as well for another $3 million. Right, and then as you go through your life and you make certain achievements, have more children, whatever, the value changes and increases. And yeah, so they love that. That's what they want. So if you're a farmer and you've got a bull and a couple of heifers, what do you want to see happen? You want to see them have a couple more cows? Yeah, that's more money for you. Hey, when you start counting, oh yeah, that's $800 there, and and that's what they do. But I don't think they're really as kind to us as what a farmer might care for their animals for. So, in that trust situation now, that's a commercial legal dead entity that they created out of you, right? That's your duplicate you. They call that, or we call it, straw man. Right, so there's the real you, which we're going to draw as a full-bodied person, or full-bodied man, woman, right? That's the real you that God created, right? Then they create the straw man, which is a stick figure, sad, fake, fictitious, dead commercial entity, known as a person. Right? And that's what we are. Well, that's what they've done to us. We are men and women. But it's to say they've enslaved us and trapped us. And then you're now accountable for the public debt for the rest of your life. And they're going to see fit to extract every bit out of you. So when you go to the bank, the bank doesn't actually have the money. You go, you ask them for a home loan, and they turn you upside down and said you're worthy of it. And then finally you get granted your home loan and they loan you the money. Well, that's actually your money out of your estate that they've already been trading on the market, making a fortune off. And they trade on that with every step of your life. So anyone that gets married, they make money off it. That legal document when you get married is another trust document that the government actually owns as both years now, and then all of your estate together combined. And you know that you don't know that that's a trust, another commercial entity that they've drawn you into. Everything's trust in trust. So yeah, if anything happens, like if you get slotted in the mid, they love that. They plunder your account, your estate account, they make a fortune off that, trade it. You know, car accidents, whatever. Every step of your life's been monitored and traded on as a person. I remember where I'm up to now. Yeah, so you go to the bank and that's actually your money that they're loaning you. And then what they have to do is say bring up the Reserve Bank and say, well, this person wants to access some of his money. Can we give it to him now? Right? And so they don't actually print the money off or whatever to hand to you. They just, out of thin air, the government goes, yeah, right, chuck some in his account. And all that does is just increase the debt. Their debt with fractional banking. Right? So all the money's going to wherever it goes, to Rome. All roads lead to Rome. And we just keep increasing the debt, and the spiral is through fractional banking, and from your blood and sweat and tears, they just keep increasing the debt. So when you look at it like that, then this person, this strawman person that they've got legal title over, why do you think they've done that for? Yeah, you're like, is it for our benefit? Do they care about us? Yeah, by stealth and deceit, they've stripped us from our true power of freedom as free men and women, created this entity for the sole purpose of money, power, control, right? Because, like, they're not going to make any money off you if you're a free person. So I can tell you they're not going to give it up pretty easy. And I've spent a long time fabricating this system that we're all trapped into. That's why it's just it stinks so bad, because you don't realise all this stuff that the lies and the fraud and the web that they've created is so hard to unpick. And then they've got the system protects itself. So what you realise now is we think that we're living in a fair and just system, and we've got a judicial system, and we've got laws. They tell us laws, but is it laws, or is it just all legalese rubbish? And what is that designed to do? Is it designed to create a safe community for us all, and to promote and embetter the people through education, health, social standards, and practices and guidelines and all that stuff? Do you think they've created all these laws for that purpose? Or do you think they've created a big funnel, right, pushing us, you know, hurting us, this legalese into the funnel all the time, you know, where they can just, at this end, they're just harvesting off us the whole time. So one of the ways that they do that best in the court system and unfortunately, with our police system. So you get, like, even my own daughter, my youngest daughter, said to me the other day, she's in year 12, and she's talked, on and off through the years about what she might do when she finishes snack. And then she says, oh, I think I might go and be a policeman.
Thanks, dear.
And look, at the end of the day, that makes me happy because I know where it's coming from. And I'm not picking on the police because most of them, that's what their intention is and their belief. Because remember, those that were here last week, there's knowledge, right? Something that's true, in fact, right? Then there's all the stuff that we believe, right? Because we've either heard it, or we've been told it, or we've taught it, or even, for goodness sakes, we've read it somewhere, like in our constitution and stuff, or in the laws that they put out for us. So, and that's what our charter is to pick through everything and find out, is it something we actually know, or is it just something we believe? And look around us and see it happening around us. Like when I went to the march in Canberra and the people are going, you serve us to the police. Because they're of the opinion or the belief that the police are there to serve us. They swore an oath to serve the people, blah, blah, blah. That's another big fallacy. Evidence that I did do some preparation. So, without picking on the police, right, because the idea is that's they want to go and serve the community and do good. It's an honourable concept and thing to do. So, I'm proud of my daughter. I won't bombard her with what I think about all this stuff, but so the police oath, right? It's not all of it, but I've written down things. So the New South Wales oath of office says whoever it is, to swear that I will well and truly serve our sovereign lady, the Queen. Sounds good. Yeah? Sounds good. What Queen? Yeah. And is she sovereign? No, because we're sovereign. To blah, 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 that goes on, that I will see, and of course, that Her Majesty peace to be kept and preserved. So Her Majesty's, they don't elaborate which Her Majesty, right? It could be Lady Gaga. Keep all offences against the peace, according to the law. I've missed out bits, right? So according to the law. So, they're not upholding the law. Are they upholding natural law, spiritual law, common law? No, they're upholding legalese. They're upholding legislation, which is not law. So that's how they mix words up and put wrong words in, because that's what we think it's all law. Right, so they're tricking us again. So even in the oath, that's just an example. Now, I'm going into them, but that would be the same for every other oath of office, similar, like for if you're a judge, other public services would have made an oath, and politicians. So that's just all bullshit. Like that doesn't pertain to us as people. All that is doing is perpetrating the personhood domination matrix setup that they've got, where they're keeping. So their only jurisdiction now is only over persons and to some imaginary lady queen. Because that's all they've sworn power to. But what they do is they need a grant of authority from someone to operate, and that's the intended idea. Is that when, as people, when we create the government is codify and enact out the laws as we request them to do, and put that out in a way, in a fashion for the community to live by. That's their function, and we grant them authority to do that. And so part of the government is the judicial system and the law system, and we grant them authority to act. We don't grant them authority to make their own minds up and run off willy-nilly and do what they like. So no one's really given these jokers grant of authority. No people have. You know who granted them authority? Yeah, the made-up government granted them authority. The fake fictitious government, corporation government. And who granted them authority? Did anyone grant a corporation to take over and take control? No. So, at the end of the day, what's occurred, flat out and outright, nothing short of treason. We've been usurped through treasonous acts because no one's outwardly come out by an act of war and said, we're going to take over your system because we don't like it and ours is better, and we're going to take it by force. Because that's the codes of war, you know, universally. So it's only happened through treason and being usurped, and we've allowed it to happen. So, getting back to that then now, like, so the police are now being used, what they've drafted us away from the common law, right, where equity exists, right, which is fairness and justice for all. It's not saying all pigs are equal, right, but everyone gets the fairness and justice that they need, that meets, that gives them their remedy. And for you, that'll be different than for you. So it's not just saying in communism, where they say you're equal and all pigs are equal, and so you get 2 apples and you get 2 apples, right? And then it shifts to some pigs are more equal than others. But equity is fairness and justice for all, so that all gets remedy. Remedy for whatever they need remedy for. Remedy in the law. Protection. And they brought us all down into the land of, well, what it is this UCC, right? Universal Commercial Code. Universal Commercial Code. So we're all in contract law now. That's the world we live in, but we don't know that. They haven't told us that. It's like playing footy. You're gonna come out kick ball, mate? Yeah, no worries. And you'll run around playing tip, and then as soon as you get the ball, someone crunches you. Because they didn't tell us tackle. We're playing tackle, mate. You didn't know that. That's what's been going on. Right? Because they don't tell you. And in effect, so then the police force right? Here's the other thing. There's a difference between the word police, right? And then there's constable. Constabulary. I won't even try to fix that. Right? Because this was made up and operated in common law, and there were certain requirements of these people, these men and women. Right? They had to be of Christian nature or of good nature, and they had to be part of the community. The constable wasn't meant to go and be a constable in some other town or district that he didn't belong to. He had to be part of this community here to be a constable, and he had to be elected by the community because he had to have respect, two-way respect and standing. Right, so he's operating in equity in his role, right? Totally different, and people respect it, and so their function is totally different. To a police officer now is not required to act in equity. What the police officers are required to do now is uphold the corporation system and go and harvest, right? They make out it's policing, right, and protecting people, and they think that's what they're doing. A lot of them are new recruits anyway, but as they elevate through, they know what's going on, because their training's different, the oath's different. Every other mode of operation is different. So they're going to come and harvest, is drag him in to the, right? And I'm not going to call it the courthouse, I'm going to call it bank. That's a bank branch for the corporations. Because you're not going to win in there, you're not going to get equity, fairness and justice. They want your signature, and they've harvested you to come and pay some of this debt. Right, we're going to get something out of you. You know, they can be lenient with people and you might get the support finding of this and that, something else, but they're not seeking to exercise common law and equity in any of this setup that's going on. So we're no longer living, you know, evidently in a system, as I just said, of fairness and justice. What you've got to realise is that as a person, right, you're chattel, and you represent an opportunity to graft some more of your blood, sweat and tears from. All this isn't about bagging police. I'm just explaining the system, the court, the justice system and everything. And it's the same in the rego system, the car system, and all of that's designed. So you can see we're in a pretty dismal state when it's like that, because it changes everything. That police officer's role is completely different to a constable. And that is where it's very difficult, because, you know, we run around and we say, well, we're free and we're sovereign, which we should be, and we are under the law. It's not that, none of that law's been extinguished. It's just somehow been shovelled aside and usurped. But we've got to break that legal title that they've got right on us from the birth certificate registration.
So what happens when we go and register the
in the common law courts. Yeah, so to be honest, I'm really unclear about things because the more I read, the more I find there's contradictions and things, and mixing of jurisdictions and words. You'll get something that's this sounds good. This is the answer. They're onto it here, and then you discover, you look into it and you go, hang on, that's not right. So with a lot of the common law stuff. Right, and I've tried to find an example to print off, but what they say, that this is their, what do they say about themselves, is they say do no harm, because this is all this is common law, right? Right, cause no loss. And cause no injury. Right, that's the foundations of common law and equity, and you know that's the best interpretation of natural law. But on some of them, these common law sites, they go on to say, I go on to say that. Now that's a big spoiler to me, because where in common law does contract law exist? Contract law exists in a completely different jurisdiction. In maritime law, admiralty law, commercial law, UCC, right? It doesn't exist up here where equity exists, right? Totally different jurisdiction. So in answer to what you asked, yeah, I don't know. A lot of people are chasing the common law avenue, believing it's the answer, and I'm unsure. Like I said at the start of the meeting, the more I read, the more confused I get and disheartened, to be honest. But
the reason I did it was that I was registering myself as a woman, not as a person.
yeah,
So I thought, well, what's to lose? And yet went through the registration process. You can pay a fee and actually get a document. I didn't go that far, but I did register as a woman.
yeah. Look, and on the face of it, that's what a good thing to do is, you know. So we actually need to address that legal document that they've got. So it's not a lawful document, you know. That they keep confusing us, but they say it's lawful and this
So
and
this
that.
document, what is that document?
Well, it's your birth
The birth
registry.
certificate.
Yeah, birth certificate. Yeah, that's your slavery number.
How do we get rid of it?
Well, there's
Well, you can probe it.
There's different ways, right? So, and look, in the common law path, so there's three paths that I've uncovered. Don't ask me which one's right. This is my quest, you know, because all I know is I'm God's creation. Natural law is my ruler. Right? I swear by that. I'm not a piece of paper. I'm no one's chattel. And no one's got legal title over me, even if they think they do. So, I'm God's creation. He owns me, and that's what I live by, and that's, and I know that in the law, the true laws, these are indissoluble, you know, that we wrote up here. The natural law and spiritual law You can't break that down. They can make all this other fictitious legalese shit up all they like, and they've been doing it. They've got us all stuffed with it. Right? But that's not true. And so there's got to be inequity. There's a remedy for us in the law, because we've just got to find the truth. So I'm out there to try and sniff out the truth, and I'm out there to just uncover any little bit that I read and I can see where they've mixed the wrong word in and they've tried to sneak it under the table. They've mixed jurisdictions, because that's their favourite thing, is to slip something from another jurisdiction that doesn't belong into a document that sounds good. It's a document held in and presented as equity and common law and law, and they'll slip a word in that just spoils the whole party, and it brings it right back down into, now it's back down into personal and contract law.
Well, we do a big investigation into the reserve bank system.
Yeah, well, they're the ones that
That's where the fraud is,
they're the ones that required this, that invented this, because the governments were broke. You know, in America in 1933, after the Great Depression and everything, and they couldn't get money, but the bank said, yeah, no, we've made it that way. They couldn't get money, you know, with the First World War and everything else. It was their plan. And so the only collateral they had was souls, their people. So they betrayed their people and created this system to the birth certificate registration, where the banks would loan them money now because the government guaranteed that they were going to graft money continually off their people for the rest of their lives and keep them in this system now that the banks wanted.
Rothschild owned Reserve Bank,
Yeah. Yeah.
all Reserve Banks, yeah.
Yeah. So that's what they've created, but we've got remedy in the law, we've just got to find it out. So the three ways, sorry about the mic, the three ways that I've sort of come up with that or uncovered that are out there is that common law path, like you've got all these common law groups, sorry for my spelling again, right, and then with them they offer a live birth certificate, not registration. That's the key in all of this. You've got to understand what different words mean too. So it's not registration, it's a live birth certificate, and but it's you saying, well, you're a live living man or woman, blah blah blah. I haven't looked right into it, but I don't know if it really addresses the legal document that the government holds with the birth certificate registration. That's actually a legal document which they've got in their system. They've got power over. It's like saying, well, that car out there, I don't actually own that. We all thought, this is another example. We all think we own our car. Like I don't have any finance on it. So I say that's my car, I own it. But I don't. It's been registered to the government. So that's a trust document I've created with the government, and they now have legal title over that car. And they allow me to use it on their road because I've applied to have it registered. So I've turned over ownership to them. They've got legal title. Because there's a difference between actually owning something and having legal title. And so that's what they've got with your soul. They've got legal title over this straw man, fictitious entity that they've created. That's why the first thing the police want to see when they're coming up to you is they're trying to contract with you, because that's they're a corporation, they're a business there, so they're offering a contract. It's not a good contract. The contract is that we're going to get you out and screw you and get some money out of you somehow. How do you like that contract? So just to go back, we said you can do the live birth thing, and which is basically declaring that you're a live living man or woman. And by declaring that, it then goes to say that, well, you're not a person. But I don't know how effective that is.
I think
It
we have
confuses
to
them.
walk
So-
out
It
in the
does.
bushes and go,
It confuses them.
of our own communities.
Yeah, well, that's right. That's, at the end of the day, if we all just stepped out of the system, at the end of the day, if everyone in Australia just was aware to this and we all collectively decided, well, bug your licence and bug your rego and bug your vote and bugger the rest of you and step out of the system, we're over here, they'll all be standing there with no clothes on, basically. And it's as simple as that. Tyrant police force or not, right? Because they can't make it. Well, you know, the cards will be well and truly on the table then, and they'll probably try.
So it really is, well, I may be able to get access to a fellow and he calls himself Gypsy. And he's done all of this thing. So he's driving unlicensed, he's not doing any of that sort of stuff. So he's actually exercising that, he's experimenting with that. He's got a whole bunch of books and such that the corporation's law book that I've referenced, he put me onto that. So he actually came to Mudgee and did a bit of a talk like this. So I feel that if I could perhaps contact him, he would be a really good person to get on board to help with this process because he's actually doing it. Sending, like when he's getting fines and so on from the police, he just doesn't contract with them. He sends them, return to sender, no contract, all that sort of stuff. So he's doing it.
Yeah, I've heard of different success stories here and there. For myself, I haven't really had time to pursue anything and still not brave enough, to be honest, I suppose. I got pulled over coming up home from Canberra. I've been driving around in my ute for months unregistered. I didn't realise that we didn't pay for it. I got the pink slip and everything and didn't pay the rego. I soon found out coming home. So, you know, do I have that argument on the side of the road with the police officer? Or not? You know, do I or not?
If we're not prepared at the time, we can't come at it in an empowered way.
That's right, you need to know where you stand.
So,
I don't feel confident with that yet. But what I can tell you...
Another sneaky thing, because now they don't give you that thing on the window or anything.
No, that's
So
right.
unless you're pretty organised about when everything falls
Yeah.
due again, it's not that hard to, you know,
Yeah.
get in trouble.
No. Yeah, especially if you're like me. Right, so the other solution that I've tracked onto, and I've actually done this one just recently, and so I will exercise this with my fine that I will eventually get in the mail. So rather than have the argument with the police officer, I just wait till I get the fine and I dismiss it. So you can remedy this in the land of UCC. So you can play them at their own game in corporation law, where you maintain that straw man. But remember I said that straw man was a trust, right? That straw man is a trust. Right? Now, the government or states appointed themselves as a beneficiary in this trust, and they've got legal title, right? And you aren't informed that you've got this trust going on, and that in fact you're the grantor. Now the grantor is the king. He's the rule maker. In the trust, that's the law. That fella can do anything and say anything he likes. So it's as simple as coming in and saying to the government, right, when you're aware, and you can do all this with UCC process, and you can inform the government, well, you're no longer the beneficiary, right, and you've no longer got legal title over this, and I've copyrighted my name and all versions of my name, right, so they can't use it. They legally can't use it. Right, so that's in their land. You've got them screwed in on their game now. And you rearrange things. And I've also made myself a secure party creditor. So, which is a bit like making yourself your own bank. So you can actually dismiss debts. So that fine that I get, I can dismiss that fine. I can just say, yeah, that's sorted in the state debt. That'll cover that. I think I still lose me points.
Haven't worked that one out.
So who do you say that to?
Well, you file it back to the people that have sent it to you.
Yes.
But I haven't done one yet. I'm waiting for this as my first opportunity. And the people that help me do all this, I'll be relying on instruction on how to do that.
So if you're not here next week, we'll know.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But it actually, like, I feel confident with this because I know that at least on their terms, in their legalese world, I've actually legally broken that legal title. So playing them at their own game, I'm out of reach. So the only way they can really interfere with me now is if I really break the law, and cause harm, injury or loss, with intent, and because they are two laws that everyone is governed by. So, but all their statute law, legalese stuff, I can pick and choose really which one. So for the sake of it, I'll keep registering my car so I can just be part of society, and as I go along I'll work out how effective this process is. But that's just one avenue. The only thing about this is, okay, well that might be good for me. If it works, it might be good for me. I've sorted myself out. But the problem with that sits with me is I'm not doing anything to change the system for the better good for all and for our children. And so I'm just facilitating that system that really, ultimately I want that abolished. Right. Because it doesn't sit with me.
If enough people learn how to do that and utilise that, will that eradicate that out of the system?
Well, it'll send them break.
Well, well, they're broke anyway.
Yeah, that's
why
right, yeah.
That's why they're bonding.
Yeah. Once everyone realises, well, they can play their own game back at them, and then also work it for their betterment. But they'll never admit this. See, part of that process there is you write to them and let them know, and they're supposed to write back and acknowledge, oh yes, blah blah blah, or rebut it, but they don't do anything. So silence, no response is by acquiescence, it's agreement. So then that's lawful or legal. So anything that you've stated when you send all these letters off to them, because they can't admit there's this big fraud going on. So you've got them screwed.
Yeah.
So they're the three avenues that I've uncovered, but ultimately, like, what I would like to see is that we operate in truth and in the law and in equity, and that'll just, all this stuff will disappear. Well, that would be the intention. Because in the rule of law, and where we have trial by jury and annulment by jury, that's what we're supposed to have in our justice system. Now, that's not just for in case you murder somebody and you're beaten, and if you're O.J. Simpson and you go in front of the jury, right? No, you're meant to have a system where from the community you've got your jurors, and they're the community of your peers, right? You've got your jurors, and where people say, oh, and what you'll see these days when you do have a trial by jury is you've still got the judge, right? And then you've got the jury and then the accused. Well, you don't have a judge, you have a convener. Right, so the convener is just a bit like what I'm doing now. I'm convening this meeting. I'm not the leader. Right? Then you got your peers. You should be afforded that system for everything and anything, any wrongdoing or any mishap. And then what happens is, in the jury, there's 12 people, right? Now, if even just one person, one man or woman, finds the accused not guilty, well then he's not guilty. And then what happens is then the charge that he's being charged with comes under scrutiny. Well, that bit of legislation or law then comes under scrutiny because they want to find out, well, if he's really guilty, how is it that one person, through their conscience, it didn't sit right with them, that they found that it wasn't quite right to sentence this person as guilty for his charge. So then it comes under scrutiny. The legislation that it was, well, let's address that, and the people that wrote it. And that's what trial by jury and annulment. So then you start weeding out. So that, if it's found that that bit of legislation was inappropriate and was faulty or unjust or what have you, that gets struck, no longer exists. So it starts with finding this legal system where we haven't got all these entrapment kind of laws and unfair and unjust laws, easily misconstrued laws, or legislation I should be saying, and you start getting true and whole laws that really capture what is an injury, a loss or a harm. It starts to purify the system. Yeah, so that we don't see that. We go, like I do before, to the courthouse, aka bank branch. Because that's all it is. It's an administration branch. And the judge sits at the bench, which is like the bench, the teller. And you get administrated in this UCC land. And you don't have fair and equitable justice. So I'm not advocating that there's a pretty loose legal system going on and we're all of a sudden being soft on people, because very certain in this situation, when somebody is established that they're guilty in their actions, that the law will be firm and just as well. The penalty, the punishment. Under this system, the punishment will warrant the crime. Yeah, so it's not advocating being light on people and at all, but there's a lot of unjust things that go on in the legal system, hence the book Scales of Justice. So, I think it's a little before 9, but I think I've run out of steam tonight. and I'm not sure if I covered much new ground tonight. I know I went over a bit from last week. Yeah, so I guess what I want to reiterate what I stated last week is what I'm hoping that people do is we got into this mess and this trap because we've foregoed our own responsibility to understand what's governing us. It's just our way as Australians, politics and all that, just don't understand it and all of that, but that's how we got in this mess. And really, the only way we're going to get out of this mess, we start taking responsibility for ourselves and understanding and reading for ourselves, and it's a big job, don't get me wrong, and we don't all have time, but, and it hurts the head. But we're not going to change anything, and we can run off to protests and things and shout things out, but do we know what we're saying? And do we know what we really want?
That's right.
You know? And when you're accusing somebody of something, do you know what you're really accusing them of? So, you know, like I am going to go back down to Canberra because I just feel that we need voice. We need a voice. I don't really agree, but I don't think anything's going to come of it. I've got all sorts of thoughts about it, but that's beside the fact. I just want to let the truth do its work and expose those who aren't true, because that's what truth will do. And I just think it's good for the people to get together and have a voice and make a noise for our own sakes. And hopefully some camera will capture it and put it on the news for the rest of the people that are at home watching telly all the time. But it's, yeah, we need to take responsibility and read, learn, understand the meanings of things, understand what jurisdiction is, understand how they usurped us. And then we need to tell people. I know that's a big job. But at least you need to be able to interrupt people when you hear bullshit and they're wrong. At least stand up and say no, and maybe educate them a bit, somewhat sink in. But most importantly, it's generational. Like, we all want the quick fix to try and solve the problems of what we've got on our hands now, because it feels pretty desperate because they're trying to kill us. So we can't really afford 3 generations of retraining to rectify things, because we'll all be dead at their rate. Yeah, and well, you know. So it feels a bit urgent, but pursuing those 3 avenues here as a quick fix, I don't know. Because I don't know that there's a quick fix. We need to rectify the problems of the past and the present, where we don't even teach the children. They don't even know what the Constitution is, whether it's a false one or right one or not. It's like, and that's been by design. And we need to unpick all that, and rewind that, and we need to start being leaders and ensuring that people, especially the younger people, know the truth and know where they should be standing, what's law and what's not. It'll all be written out of the books sooner or later, and we won't have anything to refer to. So it's up to us to start to try and defend that.
So what would you say, what's the aim or the goal of the protest? What's the core, what's it all about? Down to, where is it? It's that wide sort of thing.
I guess put simply, people want the mandates to end.
Yeah.
No more mandates, no more forced vaccinations. Don't vaccinate kids.
That's not going to stop the problem. The problem's the government. That's got to go.
You're absolutely right. It's this system.
Well, if the government goes, we'll only get another one that's going to do exactly the same thing, maybe just in a different way.
We wouldn't be in this situation fighting and having the protests if we had the right system going. We've got the top-down system going. where they're governing over us. We've created a monster. By creating government, we've created the monster that's now ruling over us because they've usurped our power, and it's a dog off the chain.